Thesis statements and topic sentences are some of the most important pieces of your whole paper as they really hold the focus together and make the paper unified. At the same time, when you go through middle school and high school and college, the emphasis on thesis statements and topic sentences as far as placement and how they are written can change. And there's real important reasons for that as you grow as a writer, that you need sometimes more guidance for writing the sentences. And then when you get stronger skills, you're able to sort of ad-lib a little bit more and make them a little bit more natural and flowing with your writing. So I would just like to clarify these terms in this video today. A thesis statement is really important. It might be the most important sentence of your paper. It clearly explains the main point of the whole paper. So this is your central goal. If there's a prompt that you're responding to, it should respond directly to the prompt. If it's a question that you're responding to, it should directly answer the question. If you have a strong thesis statement, you can usually build a pretty strong paper from that base. If the thesis statement is off topic, the paper will inherently probably not do very well because the thesis doesn't address the prompt or the question being asked. So it's really important that you start here. Sometimes you write into your thesis, and that's okay too, but you want to make sure when you're organizing your paper, you're really looking at what is my overall goal and how can I state it in the clearest, most concise way possible. It's usually one sentence in length, but if you have a longer paper, a more complex topic, it might be 2 or 3 sentences, and it usually appears at the end of the introduction or near the end of the introduction. When you first learn to write paragraphs, you might learn to put it at the beginning of a paragraph or the beginning of what you're writing. As you work into a longer essay, it appears near the end of the introduction. Your introduction may be 1, 2, 3 paragraphs depending on the length of your paper, but it should appear somewhere near the end of that. It should be a declarative sentence, so a sentence that ends with a period, and it should not ever be a question. If you're stuck and you think my thesis statement is a question, the way to fix that is just to answer the question. That's probably your thesis statement. So don't ever write, at the end of your introduction, ask your audience a question. Instead of that, you want to tell them the answer to the question. You want to avoid language like, in this paper I will discuss, or I will give an overview, or even using I at all. Avoid that sort of transparent language instead of wasting words on that, which is already clear by the fact that you are the one writing the paper. Just give the main point that you want to cover. Your thesis statements, you might have learned to write them with subpoints included, which would be, you would kind of, this is happening because this, and this, and then you have your 3 subpoints right there in your thesis statement. That's okay for a 5-paragraph paper as long as it's sort of brief. But when you get to maybe 7 paragraphs, 10 paragraphs, longer papers, you're not going to list every subpoint, in your thesis statement. So sometimes at that point, it's okay to just sort of be more general and not include all of those little points along the way. Here are some example of thesis statements that might be bad and better ones sort of towards the bottom. I would like to also have a disclaimer that I do love cats and dogs, and I'm just using these examples to make my point. So if there are any dog fanatics, please do not be personally offended that I favor cats in my thesis statements here. So here are some poor thesis statements, and see if you can figure out what's poor about them. The first one, it says, in this paper, I will demonstrate how cats are superior to dogs. So this is using the language, in this paper, I will, right? We want to avoid that. Instead, you could just go start the sentence with cats and avoid all that extra word verbiage at the beginning of the sentence. All right, second one. Cats are superior to dogs because they can be independent. You don't have to take them with you when you travel. They can be affectionate. They're just as loyal as dogs, and they require less overall care. Woo! That was a long one. So this one starts out okay, but you have so many reasons listed there that it gets to be a little long and a little much. Also, the list does not use parallel structure between each part between commas. They're not using parallel structure there, so it becomes complicated to follow, to understand, and it just gets to be a little bit too much. So simplify your thesis statements. If you can't include all your subpoints, that is okay. Third thesis statement that's poor. Are cats superior to dogs? Right? I'm asking you that question. But instead of that, I want you to tell me the answer to that question in your thesis statement. Okay, so avoid the mistakes that you're seeing in these first three thesis statements. Here are a few that are better. Cats are superior to dogs. Keep it simple, right? That is absolutely fine. It's clear. I know what the point is. I'm not getting confused by any extra words or anything that is, unclear. The only thing that could be stronger is if you could get rid of the to be verb are in that sentence. Second one, due to their wit and self-sufficiency, cats are superior to dogs. So here's one where I'm giving a couple reasons why, but I'm not giving sort of the broad range of everything I'm going to cover. My overall points are cats are superior to dogs for their wit and self-sufficiency. And I know that in the body, the writer is going to focus on wit and self-sufficiency. That doesn't mean it will be 2 paragraphs. This might be a 10-paragraph paper, but I know sort of the general subpoints the writer will go into. Last one, overall, cats demonstrate more independence and loyalty than dogs. This one's also working well. First of all, there's a word at the beginning, a transitional expression, the word overall. Sometimes at the end of your introduction, including sort of a summative word like that right before you go into your thesis can signal to your reader, and here's my main point. Here's overall, here's what I'm trying to say. That can be helpful in your introduction to organize it that way and to help that transition. The sentence is also a little bit stronger because I use a stronger verb. Cats demonstrate, right? Instead of are, they demonstrate more independence and loyalty than dogs. So I know this paper, the goal is about how cats have more independence and loyalty than dogs. And that's the whole thing. Topic sentences. So these are sort of like the children of your thesis statement. Their goal is to sort of make a connection between the thesis and the individual body paragraph. So you think of a kid, it's like a connection between the kid and his life, but he also is connected to the parent in some kind of way. So they essentially reiterate the thesis while also narrowing the focus to whatever subpoint is being covered in this particular paragraph. They typically appear near the beginning of every body paragraph, and I would recommend even just doing a topic sentence outline before you start writing a paper, just so you know, here's what I'm going to focus on, and does this order make sense? They break down the subpoints of that overall main point. Here are some examples for the thesis statements I was working at on the previous screen. Cats' self-sufficiency makes them easier to care for than dogs. So here I'm expanding on one of the subpoints. Dogs lack the wit that cats possess. So there's a reason, and I'm just sort of, here's this little reason that's a part of the overall theme, the overall focus of the paper, but just a little subpoint. Here's another example. This might be an opposing viewpoint, a refutation of that coming somewhere in an argument paper. Though some believe dogs demonstrate more loyalty, cats also feel deep loyalty toward their owners. Okay, so you can see how the topic sentences work together with the thesis statement to maintain that focus throughout the whole paper. And the thesis and the topic sentences are really sort of, the central veins of your paper. They're going to keep it focused on that main idea, that main point, and make sure that your reader never gets lost in any of the other ideas, but always comes back to that central point.